I want you to just, for a second, close your eyes. Picture a railway station. It's in Western India, maybe the 1950s. It's dusty, it's loud, chaotic.
Yeah, you can almost smell it, that mix of coal smoke and steam and spices.
Exactly. The trains are these huge, chugging steel beasts,
Oh.
and the platform is just this sea of people. And through that crowd, there's this little boy. He can't be more than 6, maybe 7 years old. He's holding a kettle, probably way too heavy for him, and he's shouting, "Chai, garam chai, tea, hot tea."
It's a very powerful image. You're taking us to Vadnagar in Gujarat.
Precisely, Vadnagar. And that boy, barefoot on the platform, pouring tea for travelers for just a few coins, that boy is Narendra Modi. Now open your eyes. Fast forward 70 years.
All right.
That same person is standing at a podium at the United Nations. Or he's filling a cricket stadium with 100,000 people chanting his name. He is governing 1.4 billion people. He is, by the numbers, the most popular elected leader on the planet.
It's the ultimate democratic fairy tale, isn't it? The tea seller who becomes, well, not king, but prime minister.
It really is. But that's actually not the whole reason we're here today. We're not just doing a standard biography. We are doing a deep dive into a very specific and, frankly, very strange document that came across our desk.
It is, without a doubt, one of the most unusual sources we have ever looked at on this show.
The document is a blog post. It's dated February 12, 2026. So right now, basically. The title is Face Narendra Modi, From Tea Stall to the World Stage. And the author, well, the author claims to be Barack Obama's first full-time volunteer in New York City.
And that little detail is so important. It's a crucial piece of context because you have a writer who is coming from the absolute heart of the American progressive movement.
Totally. Grassroots organizing, liberal values, the whole hope and change thing from the Obama era.
And this person is now turning their analytical gaze toward, the heart of Indian right-wing politics. It's an unexpected perspective.
It's a very unexpected pairing, but here's the real hook.
Yeah.
This text doesn't just give us one biography of Modi. It gives us 2 of them, running side by side.
And 2 Modis? What do you mean?
2 completely different, yet, according to the author, completely intertwined narratives of the same man. Narrative number 1 is, what you'd expect from a sharp political analyst.
Okay.
It's grounded, it's gritty, it's all about data, infrastructure, election strategy, the hard-nosed mechanics of power. It explains how the tea seller became the prime minister.
The practical political story.
And narrative 2.
Narrative 2. It takes a hard left turn off the map of what we usually consider reality. It stops looking at Modi as a politician and starts viewing him as a divine entity.
We're talking about the pivot to prophecy that the source mentions.
We are. The author argues, and seems to be completely serious, that Narendra Modi is the literal reincarnation of Hanuman, the monkey god from the Ramayana.
Wow.
Yeah. And that he's returned to Earth to usher in the end of a cosmic age.
So it's kind of a grand unification theory of Indian politics. It's an attempt to explain how, say, building toilets in villages and fighting a cosmic spiritual war are actually part of the same project. Exactly. That's the perfect way to put it. So our mission today is to explore this text. We're going to walk through both of these narratives, the political and the prophetic. But before we dive in, I think we absolutely need a disclaimer.
We do. A big one. Listen, our job here is to be reporters. We're your guides to this specific text. And this document, it contains some incredibly bold theological claims. It has some highly, highly controversial views on religion.
Especially regarding Islam, which we'll get to.
Yes, and it makes some very specific prophecies about this year, 2026. We are not endorsing any of this. We are not saying, yes, this is objective fact.
Not at all.
We are saying this is what this particular source argues, and we're going to unpack it because it offers this incredible window into how a huge segment of humanity might be viewing their leader and the world.
We are exploring the worldview, not validating the theology. So, with that said, let's start at ground level. The man himself. Section 1. The humble origins.
Right. If you really want to get inside the psychology of Narendra Modi, the author argues you have to understand Vadnagar in the 1950s. He was born September 17th, 1950.
Which is just 3 years after India's independence from the British.
Exactly. The country's still, reeling from the trauma of partition. It's a wounded civilization just trying to get back on its feet. And Modi is born into this.
Yeah.
This family of very modest means.
The third of 6 children, right?
That's right. His father, Damodar Dasmalshan Modi, ran that little tea stall at the railway station. And the source keeps coming back to one word to describe his childhood. Scarcity.
Scarcity.
It wasn't just, oh, we don't have luxuries. It was a life that was fundamentally defined by the lack of things. Lack of money, lack of space, lack of resources. But the text argues the scarcity forged a very specific kind of discipline in him from a young age.
And the tea stall wasn't just a job, was it? It was more like his first school.
I think that's the argument, yeah. Think about a railway station in a small town. It's the portal to the entire universe. You have holy men, merchants, soldiers, farmers, people from different states speaking different languages, all passing through.
So for a kid just watching and listening.
For a young, observant boy, the source suggests this was his real education. He was watching the constant flow of humanity, learning about the country just by observing.
The text also mentions this dichotomy in his personality, even as a kid, a kind of split.
Yes. On the one hand, he was the dutiful son, the worker, the boy selling tea. But on the other hand, internally, he was apparently deeply introspective, drawn to spiritual things, to solitude.
But at the same time, he loved the stage.
And that's the contrast. He was a theater kid, essentially. He loved acting in school plays. He loved debate. He loved the mechanics of storytelling and performance.
So you've got the contemplative monk and the charismatic performer in the same person.
Exactly. And the source argues that this combination is the absolute seed of his entire political career. It's the key that unlocks everything.
You can see that play out today, can't you? One day, he's retreating to a cave in the Himalayas to meditate, with cameras there, of course.
Of course.
And the very next day, he's in a stadium holding 50,000 people in the palm of his hand. This is an unusual skill set.
It's a very rare combination. You usually get the quiet backroom intellectual or the loud, tub-thumping populist. Modi seems to be both.
And then comes this period the source calls the wandering. This is the part of the story that feels almost cinematic. In his late teens, he just leaves home.
He just disappears. This is his lost years period. He's 17, maybe 18 years old. And while all his peers are thinking about getting jobs or arranged marriages, Modi packs a small bag and heads for the Himalayas.
To find himself, as the cliche goes.
More like to find Dharma, I think is how the source frames it. He visits the Ramakrishna mission, he stays in various ashrams, he lives with wandering sadhus, holy men, and the text makes a point of saying this wasn't some political stunt.
Right, he was a nobody then. No cameras.
He was a complete nobody. There was no one following him. He was, by all accounts, genuinely searching for something deeper.
And the source claims this period is what solidified his connection to Sanatana Dharma.
We should probably define that term. Sanatana Dharma is the indigenous term for what many in the West call Hinduism. It translates roughly to the eternal order, or the eternal way.
So for him, yoga wasn't like a fitness trend he picked up later in life.
Not at all. For him, the source argues, yoga and a certain kind of asceticism became a lifestyle, a fundamental way of being. He adopted a life of renunciation very early on. And that discipline, that mindset, made him a perfect fit for the RSS.
The Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh.
Yes. Now, if you read most Western media, the RSS is often described in very stark terms, like a Hindu nationalist paramilitary group.
That's the common description.
And, that's one lens to view it through. But the source here describes it very differently. It describes it as a kind of school for character.
Like a boot camp.
A spiritual and patriotic boot camp is a good way to put it. He joined as a young boy, and the values that were drilled into him there were very specific. Nationalism, first and foremost, the nation above all else. Cultural pride, this deep belief in the greatness of Indian civilization. And selfless service.
The concept of seva.
Seva, the idea that you serve the community, you serve the nation without any expectation of personal reward. And this philosophy leads us directly into section 2 of his life, the silent architect.
This is the part that I think most people outside of India know absolutely nothing about. The 80s and 90s. The Prakaric years.
Right. A Prakaric is a full-time organizer for the RSS, but it's so much more than just being a volunteer. It's a vocation. It's almost monastic.
How so? What does that life entail?
Well, you don't get married. You don't have a family of your own. You don't own property. You essentially live out of a suitcase. You might sleep in the local RSS office or at the homes of supporters. You eat whatever is given to you, and your entire life is dedicated to one thing: travel, organize, and build the network.
The text has this great line. It says he was sleeping little and traveling incessantly. He was a ghost in the machine.
He wasn't a ghost, he was the engine room. And this is where the source makes a really fascinating point about something it calls data-driven politics.
Yes, this really jumped out at me. The author says Modi was doing Moneyball for politics long before the internet even existed.
Well, long before, we're talking about the late 80s, early 90s here. Modi gets deputed from the RSS over to its political wing, the BJP, the Bharatiya Janata Party. And he brings with him this meticulous, almost scientific approach to winning elections.
He kept detailed notebooks on everything.
He developed a reputation for knowing the granular details of every single constituency. He would know the caste breakdown of a specific village. He'd know which local leader was influential but unhappy. He'd know which neighborhood's water pump was broken.
So he was building a database.
He was building a database in his mind. And on paper, long before anyone had heard of Cambridge Analytica, he believed you won elections booth by booth, not with big rallies.
The source points to one specific event as his big coming out party as an organizer, the Rath Yatra in 1990.
The chariot journey. This was a huge nationwide procession led by the senior BJP leader L.K. Advani. The stated goal was to build momentum for the construction of the Ram Temple in Ayodhya. It was a logistical nightmare.
A huge undertaking.
Thousands of kilometers, crossing multiple states, massive crowds every day, and the constant potential for communal violence. It was a tinderbox.
And Modi was the guy making sure the trains ran on time, so to speak.
He was the ultimate fix-it guy. He was the one making sure the chariot itself was mechanically sound, that the crowds were managed, that food and water were available, that the media got their sound bites. It was a masterclass in organization, and it cemented his reputation inside the party as the silent architect, the guy who just gets things done.
But always behind the scenes. He was the guy behind the guy on the chariot until 2001.
And that brings us to Section 3, the Gujarat Governance Laboratory. This is the moment where everything, and I mean everything, changes for him.
And it was a really sudden ascent, wasn't it? He didn't climb the ladder and win an election to become chief minister.
Not at all. The incumbent chief minister of Gujarat was seen as failing. The party had just suffered a couple of bad by-election losses. There was a lot of internal turbulence, so the national leadership in Delhi basically just parachuted Modi in.
Like a turnaround specialist.
Exactly. They said, go fix Gujarat. And at that point, he had never held a single elected office in his life.
And almost as soon as he takes office, disaster strikes. Or at least a massive controversy, depending on your perspective. The 2002 Gujarat riots.
You cannot talk about Narendra Modi's career without talking about 2002. It's impossible. A train carrying Hindu pilgrims was set on fire in a town called Godhra. 59 people were burned alive.
And that was the spark.
That was the spark that lit the fuse. Horrific violence erupted across the state. In the riots that followed, over 1,000 people, the vast majority of them Muslims, were killed.
The text calls it the most debated and polarizing episode of his entire career. How does the source handle this?
It reports the outcome factually. It acknowledges the absolute horror of the events, but it emphasizes that multiple investigations, including a special investigation team that was appointed and monitored by the Supreme Court of India, found no prosecutable evidence against Modi personally. He was legally cleared.
But the political stain, the reputation, that's stuck.
It stuck hard. The West, particularly the US and the UK, effectively boycotted him for a decade. He was denied a visa to the United States. He was branded internationally as this deeply polarizing figure.
And this is where the source identifies a really crucial pivot in his strategy, a rebranding.
He had to change the subject. He realized, the author argues, that if he stayed in the trap of debating identity politics and the riots forever, he would just drown in it. So he pivoted. He pivoted hard to development.
He decided to make Gujarat his showcase.
He turned the entire state into what the source calls a governance laboratory.
And the big marketing campaign was Vibrant Gujarat.
That was the slogan. He started holding these huge Davos-style investor summits right there in Gujarat. He went out and courted big industry, both Indian and international, Tata, Ford, Suzuki, and he focused relentlessly on the basics.
What kind of basics?
Roads. 247 electricity for villages, which was a huge deal at the time. Water infrastructure, things that make a state attractive for business.
The source says he ran the state like a CEO.
He did. He was famous for cutting red tape, for demanding efficiency from the bureaucracy, and the result, according to the text, was a decade of strong, often double-digit economic growth. While the rest of India was kind of sputtering along, Gujarat became an economic powerhouse.
And that contrast, the story of efficient Gujarat versus a paralyzed India, is what really set the stage for 2014.
It's the whole ballgame. Section 4. The 2014 watershed. To understand why Modi won so decisively, you have to understand the mood of India in, say, 2013.
The coalition era.
Exactly. For a quarter of a century, from 1989 to 2014, India was ruled exclusively by these rickety, unstable coalition governments.
Weak central government.
Very weak. You had these hung parliaments where no single party had a majority. So if a tiny regional party with 5 members of parliament got angry about, I don't know, the price of onions.
He could threaten to bring the whole government down.
And they often did. It led to what was called policy paralysis. Nothing big could get done. On top of that, there were massive corruption scandals rocking the government. The economy was stalling. The average Indian voter was just deeply frustrated. They wanted someone, anyone, to just take charge.
And into that vacuum steps Modi with his slogan, Ache Din.
Good days are coming. It was an absolute masterclass in political campaigning. It was presidential in style. It wasn't about the BJP as a party. It was about the man, Modi. He was the face, the brand.
He used technology in a new way, didn't he? Holograms.
He did. He used 3D holograms of himself to give speeches in dozens of locations at the same time. He embraced social media more effectively than any other Indian politician.
And he targeted the youth, first-time voters.
He targeted the aspirational class. The people who weren't asking for government handouts, they were asking for jobs, for opportunity, for a sense of national pride. And the result, the mandate he received, was historic.
282 seats in parliament.
A single-party majority. It was the first time in 30 years that a single party had won an outright majority on its own. He didn't need any coalition partners. He had broken the curse.
So he gets this immense power. Now let's look at what he actually did with it. Section 5. The policy pillars of the Modi era.
The source sort of groups his governance model into 3 main buckets: welfare, national security, and global diplomacy.
Let's start with welfare, because this is where that technocratic, data-driven side of Modi really comes to the forefront. The source calls it the JAM Trinity.
JAM. And I mean, you really can't understand modern India or Modi's governance without getting your head around this concept. It's the technological backbone of his entire welfare state.
Okay, so break it down for us. What does JAM stand for?
All right. The J is for Jan Dhan. This was a massive nationwide financial inclusion scheme. The government basically forced the banks to open millions and millions of zero-balance bank accounts for the poorest citizens.
Because before this, huge swaths of the population were just unbanked.
Hundreds of millions of people, yeah. They were operating entirely in cash. Their life savings might be hidden under a mattress. They were completely outside the formal economy. So, first step, get everyone a bank account.
Okay, that's the J. What about the A?
A is for Aadhaar. And this is maybe the most ambitious and controversial part. It is the world's largest biometric identity system.
Biometrics. So we're talking fingerprints, iris scans, that kind of thing.
Exactly. Every single resident of India gets a unique 12-digit number that is tied directly to their unique physical identity. It's a way to prove, with no ambiguity, that you are who you say you are.
And the M, I'm guessing, is mobile.
M is for mobile, the smartphone revolution that was sweeping India at the same time. Suddenly, even in remote villages, people had access to cheap data and a mobile phone.
So you've got a bank account, a unique ID, and a mobile phone. Why is putting those 3 things together so revolutionary? What's the magic trick?
The magic is in killing something the source calls leakage. In the old system, if the central government wanted to send, say, 100 rupees of welfare money to a poor widow in a village,
Right.
that money would go from the central government to the state government, then to the district office, then to the village headman. And at every single step of that chain, someone would take a little cut.
Corruption.
Systemic, endemic corruption. By the time the money actually reached the widow, maybe she only got 15 or 20 rupees out of the original 100. But with JAM, the government can send that 100 rupees electronically directly into her bank account, the Jan Dhan account.
Verified by her ID.
Verified by her unique ID, Aadhaar, and she gets an SMS notification on her phone, mobile, the second the money arrives.
No middlemen, no bribes.
Zero leakage. The text calls this a complete revolution in welfare delivery. And it's this technological stack that allowed Modi to build a massive welfare state delivering toilets, housing, cooking gas that actually reached the intended beneficiaries.
Let's touch on some of those specific schemes. Ujwala.
That's the one for providing free LPG or cooking gas connections and cylinders to poor households. The text really highlights the massive health impact this had on women.
How so?
Millions and millions of women in rural India were cooking over open fires using wood or coal or cow dung. They were inhaling toxic smoke for hours every single day. The simple act of switching to clean fuel had a transformative effect on their respiratory health.
And then there's Swachh Bharat, the big sanitation drive, the toilet.
Building hundreds of millions of toilets. But the source notes that it wasn't just a construction project, it was a cultural battle. It was about changing the entire country's mindset, about open defecation, about cleanliness and hygiene.
A huge undertaking.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the welfare pillar. Let's move to pillar 2, national security, the new India doctrine.
This is the major shift from what was known as strategic restraint to a new policy of hardline response.
Before Modi, if there was a major terror attack that was traced back to Pakistan, India's response was usually diplomatic protest, right?
Right. They would complain at the UN, they would present a dossier of evidence. Modi changed the rules of the game. The text points to 2 key events: the 2016 surgical strikes and the 2019 Balakot airstrike.
Retaliation.
Kinetic retaliation. After a terror attack, India sent special forces or fighter jets across the border into Pakistan to hit terror training camps directly. The message was clear. This is a new India. If you hit us, we will hit you back, and we will hit you back inside your own territory.
And then there was the most controversial domestic security move, the abrogation of Article 370.
August 2019, the government revoked Article 370 of the Constitution, which was a clause that gave a special semi-autonomous status to the state of Jammu and Kashmir. They then split the state into 2 federally administered territories.
The source notes how polarized the reaction to this was.
Extremely. For Modi's supporters, this was the final full integration of India. It was the fulfillment of a decades-old promise of one nation, one constitution. For his critics, it was an authoritarian clampdown, a massive violation of civil liberties and democratic norms.
But for that strong leader narrative, it was a defining moment. He did something that previous leaders had only talked about.
Absolutely. And that leads to the 3rd pillar, global diplomacy.
How does the source characterize his foreign policy?
It describes Modi as positioning India as the leader or the voice of the global South. He's playing what you might call a multi-alignment game.
He's friends with everyone. Is that the idea?
He tries to be. On one hand, he's a key member of the Quad with the US, Australia, and Japan, which is widely seen as a bloc to counter China's influence. But at the same time, he's buying huge amounts of discounted oil from Russia, despite Western sanctions, and maintaining deep ties with Moscow.
A geopolitical tightrope act.
A very careful one. He's also engaging with the Arab world, with the Middle East, in a way no Indian prime minister has before.
And then there's the soft power, the spectacle. International Yoga Day.
He's brilliant at this. He turned diplomacy into a stadium-filling event. The massive rally at Madison Square Garden in New York. The Howdy Modi event in a football stadium in Texas with Donald Trump. He effectively leveraged the huge and successful Indian diaspora to become a global political force.
Okay, so let's pause here. If we stopped the deep dive right now, we would have a very comprehensive, very detailed political biography.
A very compelling story on its own merits.
It is. The story of a man who rose from abject poverty, used technology to revolutionize welfare, hardened his country's national security posture, and charmed the world on the global stage. But that is only half the story presented in this document.
And this is where everyone needs to, buckle up.
We are now at section 6. The pivot to prophecy.
The author basically draws a line in the sand and says, okay, that was the surface level political reality. Now let's talk about what's really going on.
And the central thesis is stated bluntly. It's not hinted at. The text says, Narendra Modi is the living embodiment of Hanuman,
the monkey god.
Now, for listeners who maybe didn't grow up with the Ramayana, who is Hanuman in the Hindu pantheon?
Hanuman is one of the most beloved and revered deities in Hinduism. He is a Vanara, a kind of divine monkey humanoid. He represents immense strength, unwavering devotion, and total self-control, particularly celibacy. He is the ultimate devotee of Lord Rama.
The hero of the Ramayana.
Right. Hanuman played the crucial role in helping Rama fight the demon king Ravana and rescue Rama's wife, the goddess Sita. He's the ultimate servant and protector.
Okay, so why does the author believe that Modi is Hanuman? What's the connection?
The text bases its entire argument on a specific scriptural concept, that of the Chiranjeevi. The word literally means immortal.
Okay.
The belief is that at the end of the Ramayana, when Lord Rama's time on earth was over, Hanuman did not die. He was granted the boon of immortality. He didn't leave the earth, he stayed behind.
To do what? Why did he stay?
To protect the righteous and to wait. To wait for the end of the Kali Yuga.
All right, we need to explain the Kali Yuga. This is central to the whole prophecy.
It is. In Hindu cosmology, time isn't a straight line, it's cyclical. It moves in these vast circles called yugas, or ages. There are 4 of them. The first is the Satya Yuga, the age of truth. Everything is perfect, humanity is at its most enlightened.
And then it gets worse over time.
It degrades. You have the Trita Yuga, then the Dwapara Yuga, and finally you hit the absolute bottom of the cycle, the Kali Yuga.
The age of darkness. The age of ignorance.
The age of strife, yes.
Yeah.
Discord, ignorance, materialism, hypocrisy. The text argues that we are currently living deep in the Kali Yuga. But, and this is the key, it's ending.
The transition period is happening now.
Right now. The ancient prophecy is that at the very end of the Kali Yuga, the 10th and final avatar of the god Vishnu, a figure named Lord Kalki, will arrive on a white horse to destroy evil and usher in the return of the Satya Yuga, restarting the cycle of truth.
So the author's claim is that Hanuman has returned in the form of Modi to prepare the ground for Kalki's arrival.
That is the claim, precisely. The author then tries to connect the dots. He points to Modi's personal traits. He's celibate, has no immediate family, so he can't be accused of nepotism.
He calls himself the Pradhan Sevak.
The prime servant, not the prime minister. He is obsessed with national strength, with protecting the motherland. The author says these aren't just political strategies, these are the archetypal traits of Hanuman, the divine servant and protector manifesting in a human body in our time.
The source uses this really interesting analogy to explain this shift in ages. It's the Newton versus Einstein analogy. I found this really helpful.
Me too. It's a great way to understand the author's worldview, he says. Think of the Bible and the Western linear view of history as being like Newton's law of universal gravitation.
Okay, and Newton's law is correct, right? It works.
It's absolutely correct within its domain. Gravity is real. You can use Newton's laws to build bridges, to fly to the moon. It perfectly explains the mechanics of the world we've been living in for the last couple of thousand years. It's the law of the current age.
But there's a but coming.
But then along comes Einstein with his theory of general relativity. And Einstein didn't prove Newton was wrong. He showed that Newton's theory was incomplete. He revealed that there is a deeper, more expansive, more fundamental framework, the curvature of space-time, that encompasses gravity but also explains things Newton's law can't.
And the author is arguing that Sanatana Dharma is the theory of relativity to the Bible's Newtonian physics.
That is the exact analogy. He argues that as we transition from the Dark Age, the Kali Yuga, into the new age of truth, the Satya Yuga, human consciousness itself is going to expand 100-fold. We are moving from the Newtonian age of consciousness to the Einsteinian age.
So when the source uses the term end times, it's not talking about the apocalypse, the world blowing up.
No, and this is a really crucial distinction he makes. In some Western theological traditions, the end times means fire and brimstone and the final judgment. The text here says, and I'm paraphrasing, the end times are not the termination of the planet, but the conclusion of an age.
It's a software update for humanity.
That is the perfect metaphor. The hardware, the earth stays, but the operating system gets a massive upgrade.
And Modi, as Hanuman, is the IT guy who's running the installation.
Or at the very least, he's the system administrator making sure the server doesn't crash during the upgrade process.
But he's not working alone. He's not the only one on the team. This brings us to Section 7, the Divine Alliance.
And this is where the text gets really, really wild, because it starts naming other names. The author claims that other divine or significant historical figures have also reincarnated right now to help with this global transition.
Okay, let's go through the list. First up, a man named Balin Shah.
Balin Shah is, in reality, the current mayor of Kathmandu, the capital of Nepal. He's a fascinating figure, a young guy, a structural engineer by training, but also a famous rapper who won the mayorship as an independent candidate, defeating the established parties.
And the author claims that he is who?
The reincarnation of 2 figures simultaneously. Laxman, who was Lord Rama's fiercely loyal younger brother in the Ramayana, and Balaram, who was Lord Krishna's older brother.
So the archetype of the loyal, powerful brother.
Exactly. The ultimate number 2. The author also throws in a personal detail, claiming a distant family relation to Balin Shah. But the prediction here is very specific. The text, written now in February 2026, predicts that Balin Shah is set to become the Prime Minister of Nepal following elections in March 2026.
So we have Hanuman in India and his loyal brother in Nepal, a divine axis in the Himalayas.
But it doesn't stop with Hindu figures. The text claims this is a kind of cosmic crossover event. It says major biblical figures are back on Earth as well.
Like who?
Moses, for one. Apparently, Moses has been reborn as a lady pastor.
A lady pastor.
That's the literal phrase used in the text, along with Thomas the Apostle in Doubting Thomas, also reborn as a female pastor. The text also says John the Baptist is here, and Job from the Old Testament is here too.
Why? What's the purpose of them being here?
The idea seems to be that the transition to the Satya Yuga is a global cosmic event that transcends any single religion. It's an all-hands-on-deck situation. All the good guys from history are converging to help humanity make the leap.
And Ramdev Baba, the famous yoga guru.
Yes, the yoga guru with the long black beard and the orange robes, who is a huge celebrity in India. The source identifies him as the reincarnation of Sabri.
Sabri, she was the elderly tribal woman in the Ramayana, right? The one who waited patiently for years just to have the honor of offering some berries to Lord Rama when he passed her hut.
The ultimate symbol of pure, simple, patient devotion. It's a fascinating bit of casting, isn't it?
It paints a picture of this coordinated divine team.
A team that cuts across genders, across nations, and even across what we currently think of as separate religions. It's a convergence.
But speaking of religions, this is where we have to address Section 8, theological conflict.
Yes, we do. And again, we need to be extremely clear. We are reporting what is in the text. We are not validating it. Because the author's view on Islam is, well, it's stark.
Stark is a very polite word for it. The source describes Islam not as a religion in the same category as others, but as the devil's tyranny.
It does. This is the war of the worlds aspect of the text. The author puts forward a very specific and highly controversial theological argument. He claims that there is an ontological difference, a difference in the very nature of being, between what he calls the true God and the Allah of the Quran.
What is that alleged difference? What's the argument?
The argument is this. The true God, whom he equates with the names Yahweh from the Old Testament and Vishnu from the Hindu tradition, enters human history. He becomes an avatar. He takes a physical form and walks among us. Rama, Krishna, Jesus. But the author claims Allah, as described in the Quran, never enters history, never takes a physical form. He only sends messengers or prophets.
And to the author, this distinction is proof that one is real and the other is a counterfeit.
That is his conclusion. He views Islam as the specific spiritual manifestation of the Kali Yuga, the signature religion of the Dark Age. And therefore, his logic follows, if the Kali Yuga is ending, then the religion of the Kali Yuga must also be ending.
He predicts it will conclude or simply dissolve.
Yes. Along with Buddhism and what he calls the current forms of Christianity and Judaism, he uses the analogy that these faiths were like candles that were necessary to provide some light during the long, dark night of the Kali Yuga, but they become obsolete and unnecessary when the sun of the Satya Yuga finally rises.
He also makes a direct plea to Muslims in the text, doesn't he?
He does, and it's framed as a call to liberation. He references the woman life freedom protest movement in Iran. He argues that true liberty is a spiritual choice that each individual must make for themselves and that they should break the bond with the clerics and the old structures.
It is a vision of a complete and total spiritual restructuring of the planet.
It is. It's aggressive, it's polarizing, it's incredibly controversial, but it is internally consistent with his core premise of a massive cosmic shift.
So how do we bring these two different modis back together? This brings us to Section 9, the grand synthesis.
This is the aha moment of the text. This is where the author integrates the political modi we discussed in the first half with the prophetic modi we've just outlined.
He argues they're not two different people. They're doing the same job through different means.
Exactly. In the author's worldview, Modi's political actions are not just political actions. They are, in fact, spiritual rituals.
Okay, so let's go back to the welfare schemes. Building toilets.
To a secular economist, building a toilet is about improving sanitation, public health, maybe boosting GDP. But to the author of this text, building a toilet for a poor family is an act of seva. It is Hanuman, the divine servant, serving the poorest of the poor. It's about restoring human dignity. It is spiritual service.
And what about the national security pillar? The airstrikes against terror camps.
That is interpreted as Kshatriya Dharma, the sacred duty of the warrior class. The logic is, if India is the cradle of the coming Satya Yuga, the holy land where this new age will be born, then protecting its borders isn't just about geopolitics, it's about protecting the delivery room of the future of humanity.
So the surgical strikes were, in this view, a form of holy war.
In this worldview, absolutely. Protecting Dharma requires strength and sometimes the application of force.
And the global leadership. Modi traveling the world, hosting the G20.
That is seen as preparing the world for the shift. When Modi gets up at the UN and talks about one Earth, one family, one future, the author doesn't hear a political slogan. He hears Modi broadcasting the spiritual frequency of the coming Satya Yuga. He's trying to tune the rest of humanity to the right channel.
The text also mentions a vision for the year 2047.
That's right. 2047 will be the centenary of India's independence from Britain. Modi has set a clear political goal to make India a Viksit Bharat, a developed nation by 2047.
And the spiritual goal that the source attaches to that.
A complete shift in human consciousness, that 100x expansion he talks about. The author believes these two timelines are inextricably linked. You need the material development, the roads, the high-speed internet, the food security to create the stable platform upon which the spiritual evolution can occur. You can't ask people to meditate if they're starving.
And the text makes a prediction about Modi's political longevity.
It does. It predicts he will easily surpass Nehru to become India's longest-serving prime minister. The author believes he isn't going anywhere because, after all, Hanuman is immortal.
Finally, let's just briefly look at the context the source provides. Section 10, current events. The post lists some news snippets that it says are from February 2026.
These are presented as the signs of the times, the chaotic backdrop against which this cosmic drama is unfolding.
First one is Kerala politics.
Yeah, it mentions the BJP, Modi's party, gaining new hope of making inroads in the southern state of Kerala, which has historically been a communist and left-wing stronghold. The author interprets this as the saffron tide of Hindu nationalism rising even in the most difficult territory.
The next one is Anthropic versus OpenAI and a $20 million donation.
The AI wars. This is interesting. The author doesn't seem to view technology as the enemy of spirituality. He sees it as part of the new age. The Einsteinian age of consciousness is also the age of artificial intelligence. High tech and high spirituality are seen as going hand in hand.
Then there's a note about Elon Musk and alleged violations of U.S. sanctions regarding Iranian leaders on his platform, X.
And tensions between the U.S. and China with the headline, America and China at the edge of ruin.
Why include all these seemingly random worldly events?
To paint a picture of turbulence, the author is essentially saying, look around you. The old world is shaking itself apart. The old geopolitical order is cracking. The tech world is exploding with new power. These are the birth pangs of the new age.
So to sum this all up, we have gone from a small boy selling tea at a dusty railway station in Vadnagar to the man governing a rising global superpower. And finally, to the living incarnation of a monkey god fighting a cosmic battle to end a 5,000-year cycle of time.
It is quite a journey, to put it mildly.
So what does all of this mean? Why should a listener in London or New York or Tokyo really care about this one very strange blog post?
I think the key takeaway is about understanding the depth of the narrative that can form around a political leader.
What do you mean by that?
Well, we in the West, we often analyze non-Western politics through our own lens. We look at inflation rates, trade deficits, we read human rights reports, and all of those things are valid and important. But if you want to understand why Modi can fill a stadium, why people will literally weep and touch his feet,
You have to understand the myth.
you have to understand that for millions and maybe tens or hundreds of millions of people, politics is not just about policy. It is about civilizational revival. It's about spiritual destiny.
In this worldview, the boundaries between what we'd call church and state or temple and parliament, they dissolve.
They completely dissolve. Think about it. If a voter genuinely believes that their leader is a divine instrument, that he is Hanuman on earth, then casting a vote for him isn't just a civic duty, it's a religious act. Paying your taxes becomes a form of ritual offering. Supporting the government's policies becomes a pathway to your own salvation.
It explains the incredible resilience he has in the face of criticism.
It absolutely does. It becomes very difficult to argue about, say, the price of gasoline with someone who believes the prime minister is fighting a cosmic war for the future of their soul. It's operating on a completely different plane of reality.
I want to leave our listeners with that final provocative thought from the source that you mentioned earlier, the Newton versus Einstein analogy, the candle versus the sun.
Right. It's a powerful idea to chew on.
If this author is correct, and again, that is a massive, massive if, but just as a thought experiment, if we really are living through a fundamental shift in ages,
then we all have to ask ourselves, what are the candles that we're still holding on to?
what are our outdated truths, our political structures, our economic models?
Maybe even our current understanding of religion itself. The author's point is, if the sun is truly rising, If human consciousness is about to expand, then many of the things that guided us and gave us comfort through the long darkness might not be necessary anymore. We might be about to kick away the ladder we used to climb up here.
That is a lot to process. I think I need to go sit in a quiet room for a little while.
Check your spiritual capacity. See if you feel it expanding yet.
I will let you know if I start glowing.
Eh.
That's it for this deep dive into the tea cellar and the monkey god. Thanks for joining us.
Stay curious, everyone.